The masu form of Japanese verbs is the polite form. In this video, you will learn how to turn verbs into their masu form. All you need to do is follow this decision tree. Step 1. Is the verb in question an irregular verb? There are two groups of irregular verbs in Japanese. The first group consists of the verb suru, to do, as well as all the verbs that end in suru, such as benkyou suru, to study. The second group consists only of the verb kuru, to come. The masu form of suru is shimasu, shimasu. By extension, any verb that ends in suru will be nani nani shimasu. For example, the masu form of benkyou suru is benkyou shimasu, benkyou shimasu. The masu form of kuru is kimasu, kimasu. The conjugation patterns of the irregular verbs have to be memorized. Step 2. If the verb in question is not an irregular verb, then is it an iru-eru verb? All Japanese verbs end in either iru-eru or u. Verbs that end in iru or eru form one group. Verbs that end in u form another. Let's call the former iru-eru verbs and the latter u verbs. For example, the verb taberu, to eat, ends in eru, so it is an iru-eru verb. On the other hand, the verb aruku, to walk, ends in u, so it is an u verb. If the verb is an iru-eru verb, then move on to step 3. Otherwise, you drop the u at the end and replace it with imasu. For instance, aruku is an u verb. Drop the u and replace it with imasu. So we have arukimasu, arukimasu, a polite way of saying to walk. Step 3. Is the verb in question an ichidan verb or a godan verb? There are ichidan verbs and godan verbs in Japanese, apart from the irregular verbs. All u verbs are godan verbs. However, while most iru-eru verbs are ichidan verbs, there are some iru-eru verbs that are godan verbs. If the verb in question is an ichidan verb, then drop the ru and add masu. If the verb is a godan verb, drop only the u and replace it with imasu. For example, the verb kaeru, to change, and kaeru, to return, sound very similar. The only difference in pronunciation is that the former has a low, high, high pitch accent, whereas the latter has a high, low, low pitch accent. I'll repeat the two a few times so you can tune into the difference. Kaeru, 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 kaeru. Even though these verbs are almost identical, kaeru, to change, is an ichidan verb, whereas kaeru, to return, is a godan verb. Therefore, they have different masu forms. If you follow the decision tree, to convert kaeru to change, you have to drop the ru and add masu, resulting in kaemasu, kaemasu. Whereas to convert kaeru to return, you must drop only the u and replace it with imasu, resulting in kaerimasu, kaerimasu. Compare the two results. Kaeru, kaemasu, kaeru, kaerimasu, kaeru, kaemasu, kaeru, kaerimasu, kaeru, kaemasu, kaeru, kaerimasu, kaeru, kaemasu, kaeru, kaerimasu. It is usually not possible to predict whether an iru-eru verb is an ichidan verb or a godan verb. This is something that you have to learn by heart, so when you learn new verbs, make sure you check their conjugation types. However, some textbooks and dictionaries may use different terminology to refer to the same concepts. For example, in some textbooks, godan verbs are taught as Group 1 verbs and ichidan verbs as Group 2 verbs. Now let's practice conjugating a bunch of verbs into the masu form. hanatsu, to talk. It is an u verb, so drop the u and replace it with imasu. Hanashimasu, hanashimasu, hanatsu, hanashimasu, hanatsu, hanashimasu. Remember that in Japanese phonology, s plus i is always pronounced as shi. Utsu, to beat, to hit. It is an u verb, so you would normally drop the u and replace it with imasu, but be careful in this case, because this word ends in tsu. The sound tsu appears only when t is followed by u. Therefore, by removing u, you also get rid of the s. Then recall another phonological rule in Japanese. T plus i is chi, so the masu form of utsu is uchimasu, uchimasu, utsu, uchimasu, utsu, uchimasu. Kaiwa suru, to talk. It is an irregular verb, specifically a suru verb. The masu form of suru is shimasu. Therefore, the masu form of kaiwa suru is kaiwa shimasu, kaiwa shimasu, kaiwa suru, kaiwa shimasu, kaiwa suru, kaiwa shimasu. Miru, to see, to look. It is an eru verb and it is an ichidan verb, so drop the ru and add masu. Mimasu, mimasu, miru, mimasu, miru, mimasu. Keru, to kick. It is an eru verb. However, it is also a godan verb. Therefore, you drop only the u and replace it with imasu. Kerimasu, kerimasu, keru, kerimasu, keru, kerimasu. Kuru, to come. Kuru is an irregular verb. The masu form of kuru is kimasu, kimasu, kuru, kimasu, kuru, kimasu. Iru, to be, to exist. It is an iru verb as well as an ichidan verb. Therefore, drop the ru and add masu. Imasu, imasu, iru, imasu, iru, imasu. Iru, to need. Although this iru and the previous iru are completely homophonous and they even share the same pitch accent, this iru is a godan verb. Therefore, drop the u and replace it with imasu. Irimasu, irimasu, iru, irimasu, iru, irimasu. This is the end of this episode. In the next episode, you will learn a different verb form.